A group of antiheroes, misfits, and even downright villains join forces to seek retribution after being betrayed by a power-hungry villain. It's Thunderbolts. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. Check. All right, Ronald, Pop, here we go. All right, this is Ronald, and I'm leaving the theater after seeing Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts, starring Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Olga Kurylenko, Louis Pullman, David Harbour, Hannah John-Karmen, and Julia Louis-Dreyfuss. Written by Eric Pearson and Joanna Calo. Directed by Jake Schreier. I am not here alone. I am here with, once again, another distinguished guest who has not been on in a while. Happy to run into you at the theater while leaving the theater. Happy to have
Daisy Rosario. Happy to spot you on the way out of the theater.
That's right. You clocked me. I was depressedly walking home, getting ready to record alone, and now I have a friend. So I appreciate you being here. Thunderbolts is the latest Marvel movie. It is about a ragtag group of anti-heroes that we've met in other movies. I already have feelings, and I'm realizing as I'm saying this. A ragtag group of heroes that we met in other movies that are joining together to fight a new threat under the leadership of Julia Louis-Dreyfuss's DeFontaine.
Valentina Dufontaine.
Yeah, Valentina
DeFontaine. There's a ton of name there.
Yeah, it was when whatever, there's a joke there too. All of that being said, Daisy Rosario. Daisy, you know what I always do? I always want to say it with the accent and without the accent at the same time.
Well, everybody pronounces my last name differently. I just say Rosario. It's okay.
You know what it is? It's because one time you made that joke and it always makes me laugh when you say Daisy Rosario.
Yeah. Everybody else puts more sauce on it than I do. Even Linda Holmes puts more sauce on it than I do.
Really?
Yeah.
She was just on the show. So, all right. What did you think of this movie?
I enjoyed watching this movie. I don't know that I would say it was a great movie, and I'm definitely not going to say it's some kind of like Marvel return to form, but I do think I enjoyed watching it more than you did.
I am convinced that your expectations were so low for this movie that it exceeded them, and as a result, you are saying what you're saying now. Because my expectations were mid for this. I was like, it's going to be at least a 3-star rewatchable movie.
Okay.
And I left here being like, I will never watch this movie again. There's nothing in here that I want to see happen again. There's no like special fighting scene where I'm like, I'm thinking about that as I leave. None of that. And I think this movie thinks it's funnier than it actually is. Because if you're going to put a ragtag group of superheroes together, Marvel already did that with Guardians of the Galaxy. You already had the blueprint for it. And it just seems like they forgot about it. What do you think? Am I too harsh on this movie?
I don't think you're too harsh, but I don't completely agree. But I don't think we're that far apart either, though. I will say this. I think that my expectations were low, but they were not necessarily as low as you're saying. I was actually interested in seeing this movie in the theater, though I did not even bother to go see the most recent Captain America, which anybody who knows me knows that Captain America was my jam. Like I have one of those like fake paintings of my cat as Captain America. Like
that's incredible.
So it was like when friends found out I'm not even trying to see it, they were like, whoa, they've really lost you. Like, just to give context, right, to the listener. But when I saw the ads for this, I wasn't, enthused when I saw it on the overall, kind of, it's coming down the pike timeline situation. But, as I got closer and I started seeing the ads, I was like, okay, I'm at least curious enough. But my expectations were not high at all. It really was like, I'd be willing to watch that one. So honestly, the fact that I enjoyed it as much as I did, I think actually is like, it says something about the parts of it that I liked, which I agree. With the ragtag team thing, I think like, yeah, it's not their first time having that. I did actually feel like it was funny, not overly funny, but I did feel like they at least tried to get away from some of the like quote unquote Marvel humor. They did try to let the humor live in other spots instead of just like those little quippy weird moments. And so that aspect of the humor worked for me. The humor did feel like it was more based in like the dynamics of the characters as they exist, which overall is something that I love about ensembles in general, right? Like that is, I realize a lot of my favorite TV shows, a lot of stuff is ensembles. When ensembles work for me, it's because the characters are playing off of each other in somewhat realistic ways, or at least realistic to what we know of their characters. And I did feel like some of that really worked here. Like I found myself caring about some of the characters, or at least being a little more interested and invested in them than I was going into it. I really didn't come into this caring that much about the backstory of these characters, but I did like the way that they played off each other.
I feel like what I was experiencing was kind of like the hub and spoke ensemble as opposed to like the full circle ensemble, meaning that like it felt like there was one-on-ones with one person constantly, and then like it would go back and forth between one person and her interactions. I felt like it was going a lot through Yelena, where it was like Yelena would be either the straight man or the funny person with each of the other folks individually, but there was a way in which I felt like they weren't operating together in a funny way that I expect. Like I feel like one of my favorite things about ensemble comedy, especially with these guys, is like, especially with Marvel movies generally that I've seen, is that it's quip, back and forth, and then all of a sudden all of them are ganging up on one, and then later on that joke comes up again. Like I think I'm used to that rhythm. I would say one thing that I was thinking that kept coming over me was the funniest person I felt like in this film was the Red Guardian, David Harbour as the Red Guardian. And then everybody else was saying funny things, but I was like, I don't think that's actually funny though. Like I feel like that was, I know it was written to be funny, but I'm like, who could deliver that to be like funnier? That was one quibble. The second quibble is actually with the story. The story itself is, I think I'm so frustrated knowing that we met Shang-Chi. I haven't seen Shang-Chi in decades. We know that Letitia Wright is not a Black Panther. I don't know where she is. We don't know where the Hulk is. We don't know where Thor had a fourth movie. Where's Thor? Doctor Strange could have handled this problem in about 2 minutes. Where's Doctor Strange? He lives in New York, so where's Doctor Strange? I know he went to another dimension, but I'm like, is he still there? What's going on? I feel like they're doing a lot of taking all the here, and then of course Sam Wilson, who we just saw in the movie. Even if you didn't see the movie, I can tell you he's alive, he's fine. You know what I mean? And you may or may not hear from him in this film. But I think the point that gets me is I'm looking at a Marvel movie in which they're giving us more story about these heroes, and I'm just so confused about the conclusion of the rest of the universe that it's hard for me to like really sit here and enjoy this as a standalone movie, or even as a part of an interconnected universe, saying like, is this all going to be thrown away in 1 to 2 movies when, you know, Fantastic Four is the next one, and I believe the next one after that is Avengers Doomsday, which comes out next year supposedly. So I'm like, what are we talking about here?
No, I think those are all really valid points. For me, in general, I've always tried, even when it was, you know, kind of that initial run of movies that all led up to Endgame, which we knew was really building up to something. I really tried to go into a lot of those movies and like, you know, let the connecting parts be kind of secondary to what the movies themselves were. And I think that's obviously also where Marvel has made so many miscalculations, because they've gotten so into like, we have to build these pieces that they forgot to like build the characters and the relationships and like, and I found myself thinking.
You're talking post Endgame, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Post Endgame, but even as they were getting closer to Endgame, like worrying about trying to get some other stuff going and not just like letting the thing be what it needed to be. I found myself, as the credits were rolling, and I was sitting there waiting between the first post-credit scene and what we knew would eventually be another post-credit scene, I found myself thinking like, I wish they had just taken a break. Like a lot of the things that you're saying that you are frustrated by, like the lack of like, where is this, is to me something where I'm like, this movie would work better if we hadn't just like done all of those things because they felt like they needed to do them. Like this to me felt like it had the potential to actually just build on some of those characters, some of the like reality of the world as it is, not where all of those characters are hanging off on their own like adventurous threads, but like a world that existed that went through the events of some of those movies and now is like grappling with like, who is here for us, or like, what is this, right? Which feels much more current and now and like plugged in than a lot of other things they could have done. And I do think it is like some of those bad choices that they made or kind of like rushes to get things out that does kind of weaken this if you're bringing it into that perspective.
I think that's okay. And I think you're nailing like, because the building, when I think about building up to phase 3 or phase 4, whatever that was, building up to phase 3, I feel like I was willing to sit there because I felt like they were making such good standalone movies that I could watch it and enjoy it. But then also the tags were like good enough that I was like, yeah, I am excited about whatever the next movie is because this one was good. I think the perfect example is Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok is an excellent movie. Excellent. And then when Thor Ragnarok ends, all of a sudden Thanos' ship shows up and I'm like, oh my God, and I forgot there was more. You know what I mean? And then we get Black Panther. And then next thing you know, we're doing Avengers Infinity War, which I'm like, in terms of the escalator or the elevator to the movie, it felt like there was sight there for them. What I've noticed now is there's a lot of standalone movies that have happened post Endgame, and the building at this point in like when we were talking about phase 1, 2, or 3, at this point, there's more characters talking to each other, and the development is happening. Like for instance, Black Widow is somebody that's introduced in Iron Man 3. So you already get that little bit of her, and then you get more of her in another movie and more and more. Whereas I think this one, you get 2 characters that came from Black Widow. Everybody else that shows up in this movie were all not very well developed in their other universes. No. And then here, I felt like what I was seeing here is like every single one of these characters is just trauma in a way that like, I'm like, I need more than that. And if you want me to buy into it, I don't know. I'm struggling with it even more. I'm thinking about it. I think I'm wondering, is my problem with the movie or is my problem with the universe? And I think it's a little bit of both. And it's kind of mixing into this peanut butter and chocolate nonsense. All of that being said, what would you rate this movie out of 5 stars? 1 being terrible. I always remind everybody because JC Howard messed up my system. 1 being terrible, 5 being great, 3 meaning you would see it again, and of course 2 and 4 in the middle. Of course you can use decimal points. You haven't been here in a while, but I know you know the system. Out of 5 stars. And
you and I also know that a lot of fantastic movies live at the 3.5 mark. They
Agreed.
Really do. So many. Yes. I'm gonna give this one a 3.
Okay.
It's not up to 3.5. I did like it more than you. I will probably watch it again. I think for me, I just really like Florence Pugh. And I can't say that I've thought that a ton in all of her other work. Like, obviously there's a lot of buzz about her. People really like her. But I just found myself really being like, oh, I enjoy her as an actress. Like, is trying to have some weight to this. I like David Harbour. I think we all enjoyed plenty of David Harbour, especially before he married Lily Allen. Like, I think like him and his...
I did not know that.
Dude, they're getting divorced now. Like,
what? Okay, we can talk about this offline.
We will. But like, it's like his kind of like Stranger Things breakthrough, like the guy who'd been working forever, but like really finding his niche in his 40s, and like that character kind of becoming this weird grumpy dad, and like he's leaning into the dad jokes here in a way that, again, whether or not you think the jokes are funny, totally valid, but they are at least justified in like his reality in terms of where they're coming from.
I liked his jokes.
Yeah. And so like, and then Bucky, we know Bucky's backstory. It's there. Like, Ghost is there. Ghost is the villain from Ant-Man versus the Wasp, which I would argue is the least memorable of all of the original Marvel movies. Like, it's crazy. Like, I can remember more about like Thor: The Dark World than I can Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, I remember that I went to see that movie in the theater, it ended, and I was like, I literally have no idea what just...
The most I remember is that where they met the quantum zone, the quantum realm, and that's like kind of like what spins into Endgame.
Yeah.
I would give this movie when you said 3, I was like, can I justify a 2.5? I think it's a 2-star movie for me. I don't ever want to watch it again. you did point out some good things, which is that Yelena is, and what Florence Pugh brings to the MCU, I think is going to be important in the future, especially as they continue, because without Scarlett Johansson, I'm wondering who is, and at one point, this movie had a lot more women in it, like theoretically, in terms of ratio in the group.
That's true.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. You kind of like, and then something happens and I'm like, you barely explained that. That was very unceremonious what happened there, which was irritating. But yeah, so I think I liked David Harbour's fun, like humor enough, and I liked his interaction specifically with Yelena enough that I would give it probably a 2.25. I think it's hard for me to it's because I think when I give 2-star reviews on leaving the theater, it's typically like, I ain't like this and I'm mad at them for it. I'm not mad at them for it, but I feel like I'm wondering what happens next. And I don't want to be in another situation. Like I'm considering the crowds that are coming to see this weekend. Sure. And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, is Sinners going to win again for a third weekend? And I'm like,
it deserves to.
It could. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm like, if the word of mouth gets out about this, that's like, it's all right. Have you seen Sinners though? Go see Sinners. Right. I'm convinced that could happen this weekend. And on any other Marvel movie, I don't know if that would.
Yeah. I do think in general, I think that this movie is. It suffers from the lack of good movies leading up to it. I really think it does.
Yes.
And I liked Marvels more than a lot of people. You know, I got to talk about it on.
I loved Marvels.
We all enjoyed it as like as a panel, but yeah, it just and then the moments in that.
Where's Captain Marvel? Where's Captain Marvel?
Nobody ever knows where Carol is. Nobody ever knows where Carol.
That's fair. At least that's consistent.
That's consistent for Carol. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I feel like, Yelena's character is the connector because they don't all know each other that well yet. Somebody kind of always has to be that person, and I feel like they do justify those moments for the character. They don't just have her be the one who connects things because she's Florence Pugh and that's the actress who's the known one. They do stuff in the story to justify it. But, I think those dynamics would work a lot better. Or just be easier for anybody who even has passingly the Marvel movies to swallow if we didn't have so much baggage from so many of these bad movies that have been out. It's just a bummer. I agree with that assessment. The bad movie lead up this is a victim of bad movie lead up. I think that a 3-star is the ceiling for this movie. I think as a Rotten Tomato score, I would be surprised to see this go over 70%. I'd be surprised to see it hit 70, but but if it goes over 70%, I would be completely shocked. Popcorn meter or critic score. So yeah, I'm 100% with you. With that, Leave It at Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. I mixed this episode, and if you've been paying attention, you realize that I've started a vlog. And it's only available on Patreon. That's the only way you can see it. I'm practicing. I'm trying to get better. I just put out one called What I'm Watching. So I went through all the great television that's going on. I talked about 7 different shows. You can go watch that on Patreon right now if you're a patron. But if you're not, you should consider becoming a Patreon member. You can go to patreon.com/leavingthetheater or go to the link in our show notes. Don't forget, this helps us keep the show running. It keeps the lights on. It pays for gas. It pays for parking. When there's not press screening, it pays for movie tickets. It pays for a lot of things. It pays for my labor. My labor is important. It pays for that. Again, you can go to patreon.com/leavingthetheater or go to the link in our show notes. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about Thunderbolts or Daisy Rosario, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, or Letterboxd at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. You can find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows by following us on Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being on the show. Thanks for having me.